In this video, we are going to test intents on Android, and more specifically speaking, we're going to test choosing an image from the phone's memory. So from the emulator, it'll open up the gallery. I'm going to select an image and then set that image to an image view in the view. So we're going to be using an intent to open up the gallery, obviously. Select the image, and then the image is passed back to the activity through the result. So you do start activity for result, you pass a code, and then you retrieve the result when the image gets sent back. So it's a basic Android framework piece of functionality that we're testing. And just like the rest of the new Android X testing dependencies with Espresso, this has been made easier, much easier than it used to be. I believe in the past you used to have to use Mockito to like mock out your intents or something like that. I'm not exactly sure because I didn't do it, but I think it used to be a lot more difficult, and now it's very simple. Basically, you create like a pretend intent, you fire it off, and then you just check for the result, and the test does everything for you. So it's pretty cool. Actually, if you take a look at the Android documentation in the training, testing, Espresso, and intents section here, it gives you a little description about this new functionality that is with the Android X test dependency. It says Espresso intents is an extension to Espresso, which enables validation and stubbing of intents sent out by the application under test. So it's just like Mockito, but for Android intents. If your app delegates functionality to other apps or the platform, you can use Espresso intents to focus on your own app's logic while assuming that the other apps or the platform will function correctly. So basically it's saying trust that the Android framework is working correctly. You're focusing strictly on your logic, meaning you press a button in the UI that's meant to fire off the gallery intent. The gallery intent sends a result back. So again, assuming the Android framework is working correctly, you then get that result and you make sure that it's being set in the UI. So we're just kind of strictly testing the logic in our application, which is what we want to do. So the first step in this procedure, as you might guess from the documentation here, is you need to provide these dependencies. So you need the Espresso intents dependency, and we also need some other ones down here. So it says Espresso intents is only compatible with Espresso 2.1 plus and version 0.3 plus of the Android testing libraries. So you need to make sure you update those as well. So you need to copy this. We're going to go to Android Studio. There it is. And we want to go into the build.gradle file, and you want to add those dependencies. So obviously I've already added them. There's the Espresso intents one right there. So you would just paste that in. Now I'm going to go back to the documentation. You would copy these three right here. And I have those three also down here. So you just need to paste those into your project, making sure that you have at least well, you can just copy the versions that I have, 3.1.0 for the Espresso testing, and then 1.1.0 for the Android X test dependencies. Those should work. You can use newer versions if you want, but it's guaranteed to work if you use the versions that I'm using in this video. So next, you're probably wondering about the source code for this project, because I actually have a project that's open already. So you can get the source code. There'll be a link in the description of this video. You just want to go to the GitHub page. You can copy or pull the repository or download the code, whatever you prefer. And when you do, you'll get an app that looks like this. So I'll just run the project here. So you want to select the branch intents gallery example. Well, I'll already have that in the link, but this is the app. It's very simple. It'll select an image from the gallery. If you don't have something already in your device's storage, you'll need to save something. So I obviously already do. So you can see I'm just going to select this image. Then that image gets set to the image view. So if you're not sure how to get an image onto the emulator, I better show you how to do that too. So you can just open up a new Chrome browser. I like to go to Reddit Earth Porn. So just Reddit Earth Porn in Google and search for that. And it's just images of nice places in the world. So you can just click on this link. You don't have to download the app or anything. You can if you want to. I'm just going to use Chrome, and then just download one of these images. So literally click on one of these images, hold down left click on it, go to open in new tab, pull up a little bit, and then you'll have a new tab that's open down here, and then here's the image. Now all you got to do is hold down left click again, go download image. Now that image is going to be available to the application. So if we go back to the app, I click the select the image from the gallery. Notice now there's two in this downloads folder, and I could click that, and that would set that image. So for setting the image, we're going to be setting it to an image view, as I said. But we're going to be using glide to actually set the image. So again, if you look at the build.gradle file here, I have the glide dependency that's going to be for setting the image to the image view. And we don't actually need these fragment dependencies. Those are from a previous branch, so you can remove those if you want. but we need the Espresso testing, we need the Android X test, and then we need Glide for setting the image. So before I move on, I just want to clear something up because I'm sure a lot of you are a little confused about what is happening here. So I just want to be really clear here that we're not testing Glide. We don't care if Glide is working properly. It's up to the developers of Glide to make sure that Glide is working correctly. We're not testing Glide. So I know I was just talking about Glide and how we need that to set the image, but actually in our UI test, it has nothing to do with Glide. Glide is not even brought up at all. So all that we're actually caring about is creating the intent, specifying the parameters for that intent, which is picking the gallery, and then checking to see that it does return the correct result type. So we're not actually going to be checking if the image is set to the image view. We're going to be doing that in the next video. So I just wanted to make sure that that was really clear before we move forward here. So now what does this activity look like? So let's just quickly open this up. So we have a gallery request code constant because that's the code that we need to retrieve the result from startActivityForResult. In onCreateView, we just have a button for opening up that gallery intent. It runs a function called pickFromGallery, which is down here. So we just have a simple, I'm gonna give myself some more room here so you guys can see, just an intent.actionPick. That's the one you need to open up the gallery. We need a media store, images, media, external content URI. So it's passing another parameter to the intent saying we are gonna be retrieving an external URI from this intent, from this startActivityForResult, the result of the intent. We want to call startActivityForResult, pass the intent, and then there's that gallery request code that I declared at the top here. So onActivityForResult is the other function in here. This is obviously for retrieving that result once we get the picture from the gallery. So just checking for the result okay, making sure there's no errors. If it's okay, print that to the log, sure. Then we want to check the request code. So this is the request code down here that we passed. So we're checking for that unique request code for that gallery intent that we fired off down here. Then we check for the URI that's for the image. So data, get that URI, pass it into the Lambda, and then use Glide to set the image. So pretty straightforward, nothing really fancy here. Just if you take a look at the layout, there's a text view that says, select an image from the gallery. You can see it down here. And then obviously an image view for just setting the image. So really nothing insane here, nothing crazy. But writing the test for this is going to be a little different than anything we've done before, obviously, because we're using intents. Okay, so let's start writing the test. So I'm going to close main activity. We don't really care about that. Basically, I just want to show you how it's working. There's an intent, there's a result. We want to get the result. Pretty basic. All intents are going to be similar. The only thing they're going to differ in regard to is like the extras, the data that you attach to it. So in main activity, for example, we have this is the action. So it's action pick. It's a gallery action. You opening up the gallery. And then this is some data, some extra data that you're attaching to the intent. But you could also have extras, right? Like you could also have like intent, put extra, whatever extras, whatever constants, and that will change the test. But I'll talk more about that later when we actually get into the test. So let's write it. Let's go into MainActivityTest. If you don't have this yet, if you're not following along with me, just right click on the test package, go to new Kotlin file, call it MainActivityTest. Make sure to annotate with @runWith Android JUnit 4 class runner. And now let's build this. So I'm gonna click Alt and Insert, go to new test function. This function is going to be called test validate intent sent to pick package. So the reason I called this is because I believe this is what they called it in the Google sample. So I wanted to make it kind of as similar as possible. So basically I'm validating that the intent is sending to the gallery pick package, the correct action. You could call this whatever you want. It wouldn't really matter. You could say like validate gallery intent. That's a very simple name and you would understand what that means too. So whatever you like. So now the first thing before we write anything into the test is we need to add a special test rule. And you need to add this test rule if you're ever testing any intents. So it basically prepares the test class and says, hey, we're going to be testing intents here. Prepare all the things that you need to prepare. So let's do @get : rule. And then the value is going to be value intents test rule. That's going to be equal to intents test rule, and the type will be a sorry, not the type. The class that we pass in here will be the main activity class. So I'm testing an intent inside of main activity. Now I'm going to go down into the test function here. And the first thing is setting up what is given. So kind of setting up what this intent is going to look like, and also what the expected result is going to look like. So value, we'll say expected intent is what we'll call it. It'll be a type of matcher intent. So getting those imports, matcher intent. It's the hamcrest import, so org.hamcrest. That's the matcher that you want. And I want to set it equal to all capital O. So get that import too. And the import you want here is any of these hamcrest ones. You can get this, doesn't really matter. Get any one of those. And inside of here now is what we want to pass. We want to pass all the things that we did into the intent and main activity. So in this case, we have an action and we have some data. So these are the two things that we need to tell it that we're looking for. If you had extras like bundle extras or anything like that, that's also what you would want to pass. So I'll talk more about that again in a second here when we add the ones that we want. So I'll add a has action. So has action, that'll ask for an import. I want to do intent.actionPick. So that's that action that we're passing in main activity that I just showed you. Next, we want to do has data. So this is now the URL data that we expect. So I could go into main activity and just copy that. So I'm going to go over here, copy this, media store images, media, external content, URI, and I can just paste that in. So here's the action that we're doing. Here is the data type that's going to be returned. So every intent is different. Like I said, I'm actually going to pull up a Chrome browser and show you some. So if we go to the training, testing, Espresso intent section, we were here earlier at the beginning of this video. If you scroll down to the match section here, it gives you some examples of other things. So like, for example, you could have, the data here is a URL to google.com, but you could have extras, like that extra is key 1, key 2, you could have categories, whatever. Basically, if you have any extras that you're attaching to the intent, like in the activity itself, you would also add those. So I'll open up Android Studio and show you. So like you have other options here. So if it has, you can see has action, hash map, you have has categories, has component, has extra with key, has flags, has package, has type. All of these things could be attached to an intent inside of an activity. Any of you who've been around Android development for any amount of time knows that you can attach tons of different things to intents. So those are the things that you're basically creating a mock intent here. You're telling it that these are the things that I'm attaching in the activity. So you basically would just copy whatever you're attaching. So, all right, let's move on. So that's the expected intent. Now we want to mock out the expected result that's going to come back. So I'm actually going to create another function for this. I'm going to scroll down, and it's going to be a function that returns that expected result. So private function, create gallery pick activity result stub. And the reason I'm calling it that is because this is what they named it in the Google sample. So I'm kind of just copying their naming convention. And I want to return an activity result object. So that's the right one. So instrumentation activity result. I can get a static import here. So Alt Enter, import the static members. Now what I want to do here is I want to mock out a resource that I'm going to pretend to get from the gallery. There's a bit of an issue with this because inside of this project, there's no resources, right? Like when we tested this app, I'm on this emulator, there is these images, but in this test environment, these images don't exist. So I can't just look for these. Well, actually, technically I could, but there's no guarantee that the device that you're testing on is going to have those images. Like if you fired up this test in Firebase Test Lab, it would obviously fail if you were looking for this image because that image wouldn't exist on that emulator or on that real device. So we want to build a test that can be run on any device, basically. So these images are useless to us in this test. So we want to use something that is going to be included in the project, and I like to use the launcher for that. So basically every project is guaranteed to have this IC launcher background or IC launcher foreground. These things are going to be in the project, so we can use those to test the result. So I'm going to write value resources. It'll be of type resources equals, we're just doing this because we need to get access to a drawable. So instrumentation registry is what we're looking for. Get instrumentation. This is how you get access to context in a UI test, by the way. So there now you can see I have access to the context, but I need the resources. So then I just do .resources. So now we can use the resources to get access to create an image URI out of the drawable resource. So here I want to do URI.parse, and you'll have to get an import for that. Do content resolver.scheme Android resource. So basically we're creating a what's it called, a content provider here. So :/ quotation, go next line. Now I want to do resources.get resource package name r.drawable.ic launcher background plus do / plus, and I'm going to copy that line 2 times and do get resource type name and then get resource entry name. And if you're worried about not being able to remember this for any of the tests that you write, you can use this exact same URI. That's the point of it. This should work on any device. Every device is pretty much guaranteed to have the IC launcher background. So that's why this is what we want to use as a result from the intent. Now value result intent equals a new intent. Now result intent.set data to the image URI. Remember, if we go over to main activity, we are retrieving a URI from this intent, and that's going to be the URI to the image. So we're setting the data, setting it to the intent, and now I want to return activity result and pass the result code of result OK. So getting that import, I want to get Android app.activity, so result OK, and then pass the result intent. So that will create the result that we're looking for, like the fake result, I guess you would say. So now I'm coming back up into our test function. I'm going to do value activity result, making sure to type it properly. And I want to call that new function that we just created. So create gallery pick activity result stub. Now I want to do intending. So this is a keyword for testing intents. Intending, I'm intending to see this expected intent, and I want to respond with the activity result. So behind the scenes, the IntentTestRule is doing some work. Basically, I'm saying, here's the thing that I expect to see, this expected intent, and here is the thing that you should be responding with. So now I want to go to the next line and call it execute, or write a comment, execute and verify. And I'll say on view with ID, so getting those imports, r.id.button open gallery. So I'm triggering the button in the UI. I'm going to click it. Now I want to do intended, so I'm checking to see if the correct thing is happening. So intended and then expected intent. So you can imagine this is kind of the setup. You build the expected intent. You're saying this is the intent that we expect to see triggered. It has an action of this. It has a data type of this. Then we create the expected result and we say, okay, if you do see that expected intent, respond with this. Or that's what we expect you to respond with, something like this. So on view, you click it, you perform the click, and then you say, did that thing happen? Was the thing that was intended to happen, did that actually happen? And that's the end of the test. So you'll notice here that it doesn't actually confirm the actual image that's chosen from the gallery. Basically, all it does is it checks to make sure that the image is an image, and it's an image of the type that you expect to see. What I mean by that is, is this image URI a real URI? That's all that it's checking. And it doesn't actually go any further than that. Like it doesn't take the bitmap and like compare it to see that that's the bitmap that it was expected. It just says, is this a URI? Is it for an image? Yes. Okay. Then the test passes, because there's no way to test any particular image unless it's actually in the drawables folder and it's guaranteed to be in the drawables folder. Like if I wanted to test this default image, yeah, technically I could, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be in every device. So that would be a different type of test. Like if you were testing to make sure that a logo was in the corner, then yes, you would test to make sure that that exact logo was up in the corner. But if you're testing to see if a user is choosing an image from memory, there's no way to do that. You have to just test to make sure that the data type is correct. It's a URI, you got the result, and that kind of thing. So anyway, let's run this test. Let's go up to the top here. Going to right click, go to run the test, and we'll see if it passes. All right, so we get our green check mark down there, so everything is working exactly as it should. So I know that this intents thing is kind of tricky. It's tricky because there's no like one way to do this, because there's all kinds of different intents. Obviously, the Android system has tons of different intents. So I encourage you to check out the documentation, which I'll bring up here again. Check out the documentation if you have any other kind of weird intent cases that you want to test, and scroll down to the very bottom and you can check out the Google sample. So this is how I learned how to use them. You can check out the basic sample, which is, you know, very, very, very simple. It's almost too simple. And then the advanced sample where, oh, that's actually the one that we're going to be looking at next. So, whoops, I shouldn't have clicked that. So the advanced sample is, actually the basic one was a phone number. It was a phone number intent, making sure that they called someone. And then the advanced sample is simulating fetching a bitmap from the camera. So that's pretty much exactly what we're going to be doing in the next video. Basically, I'm going to be going through that exact sample right here. So if you want to check that out, you can, or just wait to the next video and I'll show you how to handle all that. So that's all for this video. If you liked it, please leave a like, leave a comment. If you want to see me test anything in particular that I'm not showing in the course, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.